All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 1 o'clock. Welcome to our quarterly business meeting. This is actually our fourth quarter, end of last year. So what we're looking at, Stu Jackson, who is our moderator, is wandering somewhere through the Midwest. You know that quote, "Not all who wander are lost." Stu might be lost. We don't know where he's at. So he's actually visiting his kids and doing that. And so Angie and I we're going to tag team this today and make this happen. So if you haven't checked in, whether you're viewing online or in-house, you can go ahead and pull out your phone and you can use the crossroadsabc.com/vote. You can go there. On there is just a couple of things that you need to vote on in terms of minutes. There's also our quarterly business report that's there, and so you can hit the little view report, and that'll come up digitally for you, so you can check it out there. If you didn't grab it on the way in and you're interested in it, we printed several kind of end-of-year financial reports, which Angie's going to go over. And so if you want that, that's for you. You can kind of see just where we're at financially and what happened this year in terms of finances. And so in terms of what today looks like, we're going to talk a little bit about building stuff, where we're at in terms of our master plan and some things that are going to happen here pretty immediately. Then Angie's going to walk us through year-end finances, what that looks like and where we're at as a church. And then I'm going to wrap us up with just a few staffing things that are happening that we want you to be aware of and to know about. And so that's kind of our business meeting today. Of course, throughout all of this, if you have any questions, just raise your hand. And Rick Green, who's sitting over here, he's a part of our church council. He promised me that he would do a cartwheel into a backflip to get to you, all right? So anyways, so raise your hands. I'd like to see that multiple times today, all right? Oh, look, we already have one. All right, so as we get started, Angie, do you want to go ahead and open us in a word of prayer?
Absolutely, I would love to. Father God, we're just so grateful to be here in this moment with you. We praise you for who you are. We praise you that you are a Father that never fails us, that you are a Father that is faithful. You are a Father that is sovereign. You are a Father that is good all the time. And we are just so grateful that we get to be doing this ministry under that guidance. Father, just be with us today. Help Pastor Matt and I both speak the words that you want us to speak, and help us to convey the message that mostly conveys who you are and what you are doing in this community and to your kingdom in this region that we've been called to. Father, we just love you, and we are so blessed that we get to do this ministry. We are so blessed by the congregation that you've called into this building. We love you and we praise you, and it's in your perfect Son's name we pray. Amen.
All right, thank you, Angie. All right, so as we begin today, I did forget to mention, if you are online and at any point, if you have a question, just go ahead and type it in there. McKenna is making up answers, and so if you're online, she will answer to the best of her ability. I also have it up here so I can give the right answer and correct her where she goes astray. So anyway, so we wanted to start off with just some building announcements of where we're at. And so if you've been a part of these business meetings, you know that over the last couple of years, we have been working on a master plan for this area that includes basically an expansion of this building, a reworking, remodeling of this building, as well as affordable housing down to the north of us. And so where we're at today, that we wanted to give you an update, is in June, we were given our master plans for this building. And so all of our construction, engineering, architecture designs, load design, civil engineering, all of that of June is complete. And so what we're looking at doing now is in August, Jeff Tompkins, Joseph Pita, and I will start taking those plans and bringing them to construction people and contractors to get bids to see what it might cost to remodel this building, to rework it in light of some of the growth that we're experiencing, in light of how ministry has changed over the last 20 years. And so we are going to start that in August. And so looking towards that, and hopefully by the end of the year, beginning of next year, we'll have some bids in place that we can bring to this church to see if that's something that we'd like to do, to go down and to do our building that way. And so that's happening, that's in the works. The other big thing that's happening that I want you to be aware of, first, a question, show of hands, how many of you have ever used a 3.5 floppy disk? Remember when those, yes, Jeffrey, when was the last time you had to use one of those? Before COVID, all right, so a while ago. So I asked that question because it's been a while since we've had any floppy disks, right? And what this auditorium runs on, all of the lights in this auditorium, from these halogens to these cafe lights to the stage lights to these lights here, every single one of those lights runs off of a little machine back here that's run off a 3.5-inch floppy disk, all right? So when this building was built, 1 year after this building was built, which was in 2007, this system went obsolete. Now, we can't even get parts like on the black market. Like, nobody does anything. And we have had, you don't know this because Chelsea is amazing, but we have had significant issues with the lights in this room. There have been some Sundays where we have been praying a half hour before you get here that the lights come on. And anytime the lights go down, basically what we have to do is walk over to this machine, we reset it, the floppy disk loads up, and reloads the system, and that's what happens. And so we're at a point where we need to fix this room, and that is no small deal. And so we brought a contractor in that we work in who specializes in audio and visual things for churches, and worked with them. And basically, both because of where state law is going and the age of our system, what we have to do is a total rebuild of the infrastructure in this room. So every light that you see in here ultimately will have to be taken out. These are all incandescent lights or halogen lights, and be replaced with LED lights, both towards state regulations as well as just more efficiency in this room. And so our plan is that's going to begin on September 14th. Is when construction of that will begin, and it will go all the way until the 26th. And so there's a 12-day period where this room is going to be completely inoperable as we rebuild the entire electrical infrastructure in here to support lights. When it comes to cost, that cost to fix this auditorium, as glad you're all sitting down, it is $300,000 to fix this room. And so, two things that I want you to know. That one, we had a person who passed away in 2020, not of COVID, but of cancer. Her name was Gloria Jacobson. And Gloria Jacobson loved this church. This was her church home. She went through a lot of celebrations and joys and also a lot of dark times where Crossroads was right alongside her. In her passing, she left about 90% of her estate to Crossroads Church. Because of her estate that was given to Crossroads Church, when it comes to those construction drawings, they're about $170,000. Gloria's estate covered all of that. When it comes to the lighting in this auditorium, Gloria's estate is covering all of that. That's how much money that she gave this church. And so, thanks to Gloria, you can lift up that woman. Because of that woman's generosity to this church, I have not had to fundraise for these two gigantic issues that are facing this church. And so, Gloria was an amazing woman when she was alive, and she continues to bless this church in her death. And so when it came to this massive project that we had to do, as the trustees spoke about it, really the question wasn't if we had the money to do it. The question was if this would be something that Gloria would want used with her money. The answer is yes. She would want that. And so through Gloria's generosity, we're doing this. We're going to do this auditorium. And so when we come back together on the 27th of September, back into this room, it is going to look and feel in terms of lighting a lot different than what we experienced the week before or what we have right now, again, because of the whole rebuild out of this. On that day, you might be thinking, well, what are we going to do on the 20th? Because the 14th to the 26th, there's a Sunday in between there. And one of the things that Angie and I have been discussing for a while is this year, you may not know this, but this is our 65th anniversary. So Crossroads has been in existence for 65 years this year. Yeah, you should celebrate that. That is an amazing thing that God's done. That's faithfulness. God's faithfulness. And so on that Sunday, the 20th, we just decided, you know what? We're planning on doing outdoors anyways. We're going to make that our 65th anniversary celebration. And so we're getting a big top tent. We're going to put it out here. We're going to have a barbecue afterwards. We're going to do a celebration of what God has done and his faithfulness to Crossroads over 65 years. It is going to be an all-church party. We're going to have one service at 10 a.m., all the church together, and then a big barbecue afterwards. We're super excited for the way this is going to work, and we're excited as we're planning towards it. And we want you guys to know and come and be a part of that day. And so September 20th will be our 65-year anniversary. It'll all be under a big top outside, and Pastor Kim is going to be a part of it. So that old guy, he's actually the oldest living pastor here at Crossroads, all right? So, so there was only 3 senior pastors of Crossroads, but he is now the oldest living. And so I remind him of that often, but he'll be here as a part of that celebration, and we're going to have a fun time. And so I want to invite you all to come and to be a part of that. And so with that, those are 2 big things. Before I kick it over to Angie for financial stuff, is there any questions in terms of the construction drawings, what's going to happen in this room in terms of lighting, or the 65th anniversary that we're going to have outside? Any questions on that? You get to see Rick do a backflip. All right. I think Matthew's raising his hand over here just to see you do a backflip, Rick. All right. Well, let's see here. I don't see any online either, so we'll just keep moving. If a question comes up, just hold on to it. At the end, we'll take all the questions that you have before we wrap this up, all right? Angie, you're up.
All right. Chelsea, I think the first slide, I'm so sorry we didn't talk, but hopefully you have my financial slides. They should be in the production folder. So this is mine. I just put it in today. Thanks, Chelsea. Okay, so it'll be the first page in your booklet while we're getting all that up and in. A couple things. So we have some challenges that we're going to have to address that we can talk through today, and there's also some really incredible things that God is doing in our midst. So we want to kind of process both of them. The first is I want to remind you the end of the fiscal year was in June, and our budget was $2.485 million. We were able to raise 2.3, so we were off about $161,000 from a contribution standpoint. And so what that's revealing to us, along a lot of other different variables, is that we are tracking downwards in our giving trends. However, we were able to end the year with an excess for 2 reasons. So you can see $64,000 in that first page in your booklet is what we actually ended our year in. That's because we spent less money, is really the core of the situation. We didn't receive as much as we had budgeted, but we overall spent less money. There's 2 major reasons for that, and we can answer questions or get into more detail if you need. But really, the 2 things are we spent a ton of money the previous cycle on our building. A lot of things were dying. You know, when you own a home and at 10-year mark and a 20-year mark, everything fails. That's what the previous year looked like for us. And so we had a tremendous amount of money that we spent on upkeep of the building. This year, we didn't have that. We were actually really blessed in that we didn't have an overage on some of the the building maintenance costs. Those were very, very low this year. The second reason is we have a very, very frugal staff. They are historically frugal. They're super innovative, and they're like a bunch of MacGyvers, truly. They can make anything out of chewing gum and, string. And so they just showed up beautifully in that same way. They have known this whole year that we were sort of tracking down. And while we weren't speaking to them, hey, slow down your spending, I think they just got really innovative. And so, and then there's a third thing I guess I forgot to say. We had some staffing dollars that we didn't spend. So we had one entire pastoral budget line item, a pastoral position that we didn't pay out this year, and we had a half of another position. So that was another good almost $100,000 that we didn't spend out this year. And so those are the reasons that we were able to come in under budget, and we were able to have an excess. But I think the important thing that the trustees and I really have been speaking through and praying through, and that we want you to know, is that while we're not in any direness, we have $2.3 million. That's exceptional. We have an exceptionally generous congregation. We are actually tracking down to previous years. And that's why when you voted on the budget in the last quarter, that's one of the reasons the trustees said, hey, let's lower our budget by $100,000 because we're watching these trends. And I'll get into a little later, I'll get into the trends of givers so we can kind of see what we're noticing. But overall, we ended with an excess of $64,000, which is really good. Let me explain this a little bit. So we have something called unbudgeted expenses. In a church, we have two funds that we operate. One is a budgeted fund that you all donate or you all vote on. When we donate to the general contribution, it goes to that fund. There are other times, though, that you donate to something very specific. So you donate to, say, missions. That's one of our largest donations, buckets of donation. You donate to missions individually, or you donate to benevolence, that fund that helps us help others within our congregation. Those are specific funds that don't follow a budget. So they stay, whatever funds we have at the end of the year, they stay in there. They don't get lost like the budget dollars do. And they kind of just track along. And so we have, those are the most notable funds, missions, benevolence. We have the funds that Pastor Matt was talking about with the estate funds. And so every year we receive funds in, and then the ministries in charge of those funds are who decide what to spend out. So this looks like a scary number, but it really isn't. We have almost $1 million in these funds. And so this year we received about $400,000 in income, which brought our 1 million to like 1.4, and we spent this amount of money, so it's brought it down a little bit. So even though it says a net total negative of 310, that's not a scary number for us, because that's just us being generous. So for example, and I'll show in the next slide, actually, Chelsea, would you go to that slide? Because I can show it more clearly there. Thank you so much. This one, yes, okay. So when you look at this top estate funds, we received the last $200,000 of those funds from Gloria, from her estate. What we spent this year, as Pastor Matt had said, we received quite a bit of money. And so over the course of the last 5 years, we've received about $1.4 million from that fund. So this year we spent a little bit more than we received, but that's okay because we had the bucket full. This year we spent the $278,000 as a down payment for the $350,000 installation. We also spent money on the architectural drawings and designs, as he shared. So all that money spent is exactly what he just shared with you. So we spent $400,000, we received about $200,000, and that fund still has around $800,000 in it. So anything you want to add to that? Okay. The next, this is the exciting part. That's so cool to see what God is doing, and we celebrate Gloria's life and her commitment to this church, and it's just exciting to be able to share that with you. These donor-restricted funds, there's just more stories of what God's doing. We just have this opportunity. Our philosophy of ministry when it comes to finance is we want to spend it. We don't want to bury our talents. We want to spend what the Lord has gifted to us, and we want to do it in a way that promotes kingdom, right? It promotes the gospel on the ground, both here locally and then globally. And so we have these unique opportunities every year to bless others around the world with the excess that we have. And so you can see this year you were participated in a Christmas Eve offering. We raised nearly $40,000 to send $30,000 overseas and $10,000 locally. You guys were part of that. That was the invitation. And then this church rose up and said, here's $40,000 for those initiatives. Those are the kind of things that these donor-restricted funds can do. You loved our staff by giving us $20,000 to offer a Christmas bonus, which was so precious and beautiful. That's another way that these funds are used. Benevolence, I have just some fun stories to share with you of just the really cool things that God is doing. So our benevolence fund is really, it's an opportunity for this church to serve itself, to serve people within the folds of this church who are hurting. So this fund could represent a new washer and dryer for a family that you might be sitting next to in the chairs, right? It could be somebody's rent or Excel bill, right? So that fund really is intended to serve the body when they're hurting, so that collectively as a church, as a family, we can come alongside each other. That fund has just grown and grown and grown. And recently, Pastor Bruce recognized that fund was quite large and that we maybe had an opportunity to share the heart of benevolence further beyond our building, because we do have quite a robust budget even now. We were able to, Pastor Matt, Pastor Chris, and myself, and Chip, were able to just prayerfully discern partners within our community who do that work, who seek to come alongside others in need, people who are just struggling to exist, and come up and rise and help them rise up with a little bit of funding. And so we were able to choose, I think it was 10 partners around the local community, and give a certain dollar value to each partner. What I think is so cool is that I've heard from most of them, but I heard from 3 of them almost immediately. And each one of them, not knowing each other, each one of them had the same story. They had some kind of hardship that they and their board of directors was praying for, and just really earnestly petitioning the Lord by saying, I don't know where this is coming from, and I don't know that we can exist and continue on if we don't get this money. But God, we know that you are good and that you are the great provider, and that if you want this to grow and continue, that you will provide. And literally 24 to 48 hours later, the surprise check showed up in the mailbox. I mean, that's incredible. God was already before us as we were discerning, as they were discerning. God was just like laying this out before us to be generous and to use that generosity for the growth in the kingdom. So that's the kind of things that these donor funds get to go to. And I don't know, I just feel so blessed that we get to be part of that. So do you want to share anything about missions? I know you're more connected. Any stories there?
Yeah, so when it comes to, you heard it today, right? That Christmas Eve offering, that over $20,000 of that Christmas Eve offering went to the Dieselbergs, where they are now using that to rent a home that they bring trafficked women into as part of the beginning stages of rehab. And so in a very beautiful way, we are connected to something that God is doing in the anti-trafficking world through the Dieselbergs because of your generosity. When Angie speaks of benevolence, it's the organizations that we gave to and the $40,000 to $50,000 that we were able to give to individuals who are in need within this congregation or who are connected to this congregation. That's what benevolence is for. And so just this morning, I talked to a young family who is in contact with another family who doesn't have money to buy new shoes, doesn't have money to buy clothes, doesn't have money to buy school supplies. And so through both our back-to-school bash that's happening in 2 weeks and our benevolence offering, we will be able to help this family as they enter into the school year. And so these are the kind of things that we just see God uses, which is above and beyond the general giving of this church, that this is beyond what we budget. And the people of Crossroads continue to be generous in this way. And so I just want to say thank you for that.
Yeah, it's incredible. Thank you. And it's so sweet to see the abundance that God has just blessed this church with. One other thing I want to say in donor restricted funds, one of my favorite MacGyvers is actually Tiffany Dunn. That girl can make anything out of nothing. And her and Pastor Matt joined forces this year with Pursuit and Generations Ministry. And Pastor Matt knew she had money. So lo and behold, we spent a lot of money. And I want you to know that this is not Tiffany. This is your senior pastor. He likes to spend money. No, I'm just kidding. Together they did, it is a bit true, but together they've built this beautiful summer. If you came to the cornhole tournament, you saw pictures of what we're hoping community can look like here at Crossroads, and part of that is funded because we have generous donors who care about women and men in their faith journey towards the Lord. And so I'm excited to see this MacGyver spending some cash. I need to slow him down a little bit, but it's fine. That's a tension we'll manage. It's no big deal. Capital expenses, generally we are about 150 to 175 in capital expenses each year. Last year I think was closer to 250, 225. So you can see we had a lot less capital expenses this year. We have a fund that is set aside, a specific savings account that is set aside specifically for these capital expenses. And if you remember, our savings that we budget for, our savings is what refills that capital expense. So trustees have made this a beautiful system where we spend it and we refill it with savings. This year we just kind of got blessed that we didn't have a whole lot of things that we had to repair. And we have the ultimate MacGyver when it comes to Dylan. That guy can seriously, he's a gift. I'll just leave it there. Other income, I just put this in here because I want you to know we are very careful about what we do with our funds. Our trustees are an incredible board of people who are in the world of finance, and they don't want our money just sitting collecting dust. And so we have our money in high yield CDs, and so we're receiving quite a bit of interest income every year because of the really good stewardship and work of our trustee board. We also have to denote non-charitable contributions. So if you send your kid to Waterworld and you pay us for that, we have to earmark that's actually not a tithing. And so for our tax purposes, we have to denote that there's certain funds that come in that are not charitable, and that's that. And then the work that Chip and his team, Misty, are doing at the community center is incurring this rental income, people who are leasing our building. When we started, I think that was maybe $12,000, $20,000, and so you'll see that progressively go up a little bit as we're rearranging how we handle leases. But that's really good. Almost $50,000 to the overhead of the community center is a really good work. Anything you want to add to that? And then because of our new system, the way we actually look at our funding, I can share with you how we spend our money. So if any member was like, I want to know exactly how much money you spent on Christmas, I can pull that up really cleanly. That was a huge labor of love, as you guys know, but we're now the 3rd year into working this new system, and it's allowing us to track things that are really important as we think about how we steward our congregation's funding, and how when you give to us, we want to make sure we know, we want you to know where we're spending the money. So as you can see, we spend quite a bit of money on Easter and Christmas, although in the grand scheme of a $2.4 million budget, that's very little. Again, it goes back to the resourcefulness of my team. We spend quite a bit of money on new guests. It's one of our largest buckets because we want to continue to just motivate our people and encourage our people to be welcoming and greeting. We had such an incredible experience, Danny and Caroline and I, last Next. We had a family that came in, and they were doing a double duty that day. They came to Next, and then they were going to have a baptism taping. And they walked in, and they just... I don't know, they just had this like spirit about them of people who were freshly on fire for their faith. And as we sort of started talking to them, they shared their journey. It was a really hard journey, and they wanted to reinvest their life in the Lord. And so they spent the last year looking at different churches, trying to find a church home. And every church they walked into, no disparagement to other churches, but every church they walked into, they didn't feel as welcomed as they were hoping for. And they said they walked in this door, and they were immediately greeted, fist bumped, warmth, smiles, hot sauce. Everybody was just so genuinely kind to them. They said, we finally found a place like we could connect. We finally found a place that no matter how we show up, no matter what we look like, we are accepted and we're valued. And when we heard that, it was like tears in my eyes, because guys, that's you. That is you living out the commission, the Great Commission, as God has asked in this community, in this kingdom. And so I just thank you. I thank you for being that congregation. Thank you for being welcoming. Thank you for being people that I just trust, no matter who walks in that door, you're going to welcome them and say, hey, come to the family table. And so sweet. So anyways, that's amazing. So that's what that money goes to. Baptisms. We're starting to crank up baptisms. You're seeing them on a Sunday morning. We have one this Friday coming up, which I think we have 15, something like that. I mean, it's incredible. And then we have, I think every weekend or every other weekend from now through September, we have baptisms on the stage. So God is just doing such a great work, and he's just spurning up something inside of the spirit of people here. And so let's have this be 10,000 next year, right? Communion is very expensive. If you want to have a side hustle, if you want to make some money, just like make some communion and sell it to churches, because I don't know, guys, it's really, really expensive. We spend about double what we spent last year on communion. That's important for us just to process, like, do we have options? Should we start passing the plate again? Probably not. We've spent a lot of money appreciating our volunteers and feeding you. Hopefully you're a volunteer in this room. You feel that feeding and that fueling. And then we also do a lot of work through contractors. We have a very lean staff. Actually, we've gotten to a space where we're pretty lean. We might be a staff member or a staff member and a half too short. And so sometimes what we do is we find somebody in the industry or within our connected network that we can pay for a specific a moment. So like if you came to Good Friday or Ash Wednesday, Jimmy, a good friend of the Amanda's, came and he helped lead us. And so that was an example of a contractor. Or we have people coming in and painting the building. Again, we're not functionally doing it ourselves. We're contracting that out. So that's what that is. So anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'll just add a couple of quick things. When it comes to the new guests, you see on that, we spend out $3,000 in boxes, and that is the new guest box. So that's that orange box that people carry around, and the few of the gifts that are inside that. And the reason that I want to point that out is because we do that intentionally. So this is like business meeting insider information. We get those big orange boxes so that you know that that is a new person, all right? And so if you see an orange box, don't run away, run towards, all right? So part of the reason that we do that is so that we can see, because in a church our size, Angie and I just did this, there is 5,800 people who call Crossroads home at some level. On any given weekend, about 900 are in-house, another 600 are viewing online. Over the course of a month, we know that there's about 300 unique people who attend a Sunday service, 3,000 unique people who attend a Sunday service. If somebody walks in, we'll never know who the new person is in a church this size. And so one of the things that we've done is create a box so that we can see who guests are and be intentional in our hospitality towards them. And so that's part of the funding of that. When it comes to baptisms in the story that Angie told, that family is getting baptized on August 9th. And so you'll actually see them get baptized here and can celebrate that. One of the ones she skipped over was Bibles. We have both English Bibles and Spanish Bibles that we give away. And we have 10 very specific days that we've chosen that are high guest days. So these are days that we see an unusual amount of guests. And those days are random. The Super Bowl, the weekend after the Super Bowl tends to be one of those days. I guess people are done watching football and they're like, hey, maybe we should go watch Jesus. I don't know. But that's one of the high guest days. Not this weekend, but the next weekend, August 9th. The day before our Adams 12 kids go back to school, that is always a high guest Sunday. There's a ton of guests that show up on that day. And so what we've decided on those days is that we're going to give away Bibles. That if there's anybody here who does not have a Bible on those 10 specific days, we're going to make mention and we're going to give away a Bible. And we have literally given away hundreds of Bibles to people who do not own a Bible. And so you can see that right there. And so those are just some of the cool things that are going on here at Crossroads that you may never know about, but part of your giving is enabling people to have God's words. It's enabling people to get baptized. It's new guests who come in and feel welcomed. And so just want you to know about those things.
Yeah, I think we've given maybe close to 200, and we also give Bibles away in kids and youth as well. So it's just a beautiful thing. Chelsea, I'm sorry, could you put the 5th one up? I'll go back to 4. The next one. Yep, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I just want to show you, this is just a different way of seeing where your money is going. And so I just chose some big buckets of money that when I talk to you, these tend to be the things that you are caring about. So when we talk about living missionally and like giving beyond our building, giving beyond ourselves, this is what this represents, this first pie graph over here. So we give about 6% of our budget away to, or our funding every year away in benevolence. We give about 16% to local partners. Global missions is 41, and then our local mission is the community center. So it's kind of really well spread out between local and global. This is just kind of incredible to see what we're able, all these stories we've shared, what your generosity actually enables beyond the reaches of this building. And so I just always think it's really important to know that one of our major vision pieces is that we are a community that lives outside of these walls, that we're filled here and we are filled to abundance here, and so out of that overflow we're able to go out and do, and that's just a good representation of that in action. I wanted to show you when we do spend ministry dollars, just how those buckets are revealed, not by ministry itself, but by how we spend our money. So the weekend, all the things that happen on a weekend, from Bibles to hot sauces to cords and picks up here, that's about a third of our funding happens, which makes sense that Sunday is the driver of all that we do here at Crossroads. We really love to appreciate our volunteers with good swag and good food. That's kind of where we go to. There's maybe a little bit more Starbucks than I want to see, so we'll have to work on that. But we do love to take our people out and just enjoy time over a cup of coffee. And honestly, I think that's where we find the Lord, right? In conversations around a table. So that's what you see there. First impressions, I catalog that, so excuse me, Weekend Moments doesn't include first impressions because I wanted you to see that it is quite a large subcategory and intentional as per what Pastor Matt just said. And then discipleship is another third. We actually spend a third of our ministry budget dollars on discipling the next generation, the rising generation, adults, seniors. We're very, very intentional about Sunday morning, about discipleship, and about welcoming and greeting. And you can see that in the distribution of how we spend our money. And then the final one is when we look at that distribution of discipleship, I just wanted you to see how that sort of breaks out. Adults are 30%-ish. Baptism and Bibles are kind of a little bit like a third, and then families a little bit heavier. Those kids, I don't know if it's kids, I think it's actually students are expensive. You like to do cool things, so we want to spend money to do cool things. And so it's not surprising or alarming to me that we're spending a little bit more money encouraging the rising generation. So that's how that's all distributed. One more slide, and then we'll pause for questions. Chelsea, will you go back to that fourth one? So I just want to land here with a bit of a donor analysis. So just to share with you a little bit about what the trustees, Pastor Matt and I, are seeing. So we have a total of almost 750 people who gave to Crossroads this year. when you consider that we have 5,800 people who call us home, you can start to see the unbalance in that, right? Every month we track who's giving, and every month about 350 people, for easy math, are giving. Now that's down from about 450 the previous year. So we are noticing that less people are giving less frequently. And so that makes sense that we're tracking quite a bit down from what we had expected. And so one of the things that we're processing through is, what does it look like from a discipleship standpoint? What does our language need to be? What are the moments of teaching need to be to help younger people newer in their faith, as they come in here and they meet Jesus and experience what the family of faith looks like? How do we help them know that part of the blessing of being part of a family is actually giving back to it? And so that's something on Pastor Matt and I's radar. It's something that you'll see more fruit of this coming year, but in part it's because we're watching this tiny bit of a trend where we're noticing new families coming in and not knowing that giving is part of the part of being a part of this family. So we're noticing less givers less often. I will say, this is interesting, I put this in here. The people who are giving an exorbitantly higher amount than normal. So most churches have like a healthy range of the giver dollar per week is around $40. That includes the whole scope of who comes. So if I say we have 1,500 people coming on a weekly basis, and I do the math of that number would be more like $32. So we're about $10 lower than a healthy church as far as how much money is given, how frequently. So that's important for you to know. This number, though, is you. This is our core people, the 353, the 743 in a year that give. You are giving above average. What that tells Pastor Matt and I is that we have a committed core who highly values what we're doing, what God is doing in this community, and you value it so much that you're willing to invest in it. And so to this core, to our membership core, I just want to say thank you. You are holding this ship up. You are the ones that are helping us do because you give. And our commitment is that between the two of us and our trustee board is that we're going to help share that story of hope with others so that they know what that could feel like for themselves. Do you want to add anything to that? I know I just said a lot of words. I did want to note that the trustees, they're a very intuitive group of people. They've asked for us to start tracking new givers. And one of the most delightful things that we're seeing out of Next is that a high percentage of people coming out of Next actually start giving as their first step. They catch vision in that room. They catch like a passion of what we're doing and what we're trying to move towards. And maybe serving is too hard of a step. Maybe community group life is too much of a commitment, but they will start giving. And so that is a really delightful thing that we're seeing, is that we're sharing the heart of what we're doing and we're inviting them into that part of our family. And so we're noticing between 8 and 10 givers a month, they're giving, about the same range that you are giving. Although this is, I should have put an asterisk on this, there were several very, very large first-time gifts in this space. When I take those gifts out, it's averaging more around $56. But new givers are investing, and that's very helpful and that's very hopeful. When we look at this, we're not seeing, oh gosh, I was tanking ship. That's not at all what I'm conveying. We have a solid, robust core. We have, when new people hear the vision, they're inspired by it to give. Those are all really, really good building blocks to build future generosity initiatives. So that's anything? All right, so that's what I got. That's our year in review. Hey, you guys have any questions about how, why, what? I'm happy to answer. Jeffrey's got something.
Yeah, so Rick, start doing backflips.
Backflip.
As he's making his way over, if you have questions, just raise your hand. Rick will come to you online. If you have questions about finances or even the previous thing about building, just type it into the chat and we'll catch it.
So just to be clear, this is my back.
Okay. And you're flipping? Oh, nice.
All right, nice.
Now, Jeffrey's our board, he's the chair of our board of trustees,
I can't wait to see what question you have.
I know.
Actually, it's a clarification. Just so people are aware, when Angie talks about tracking the giving and the givers, we don't know specifics. So that's very general. We have no idea who's giving what. So I just wanted to point that out.
No, that's so good. Thank you. We run giver reports by numbers. So each of you represents like 10723 or something to that effect. There's only 2 people in the building who see the names if we choose to. But generally our philosophy is to just look at it as a number so that we're not biased by anything, good or bad or indifferent. So yeah, thanks Jeffrey. That's really fantastic. Yes, Miss Donna.
Hold on, we'll get the mic to you. You think you're loud.
And I am pretty loud. I have a question on the benevolence program. Has it changed, or are we doing both outreach and in-house
Oh, good question.
support with that?
Yeah.
If somebody within our church needed help,
Yeah, that's a
is
great
that
question.
available? And then how can they seek it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it hasn't changed. We just found ourselves in a space. We spend about $50,000 to $80,000 every year on individual benevolence for people within the fold of the church. But you guys just keep giving to this fund, and you're giving to this fund in very large amounts. And so we felt that it had gotten too big, and that we wanted to actually take that and bless others rather than holding on to the money. And so we've kept enough money in that benevolence account for 2 years. And the heart of benevolence is we give what we get. That is really the heart of that fund. And so we really have 2 years of giving out if you never give another dollar to it. The heart of it is the individual, absolutely. But because we had such an inflated number, we were able to give then locally as well. The way that people get access to that fund is through a special form. And so if you were interacting with somebody in the lobby, you can give them bring them to Caroline, bring them to any one of the pastoral team, or yourself, you can give them the application. And the application comes in online. Pastor Chris and Chip, they triage it. If it's in the community, Chip takes care of it. If it's locally, individually within our congregation, Pastor Chris deploys Pastor Matt, Pastor John, and myself and himself to have a conversation and hear the heart of what's going on, and then discern what's the best thing to help that individual.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Pastor Chris is no longer in charge of that fund? I guess I thought...
No, he is.
He is. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I understand that. And then one more question. If I pulled up just the forms on our app, the Crossroads app, would I find the form there?
Yes, it should just,
Okay.
it's called benevolence.
Yeah.
So it
Okay.
maybe sounds weird to some people, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That answers it. Thank you
Thanks,
so
Donna.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, the generosity towards the benevolence fund is just, like Angie said, spectacular. We spend between $50,000 and $80,000 on helping individuals, and more than that came in the last 2 years. And so that's where we looked at what are the organizations that would be in line with helping people who are in need. And so some of the organizations that we gave to were the 2 pregnancy centers that we support. We gave them money. We gave money to every single food bank in this area. We don't have a food bank of our own, but Brian Decker's here. He's an extension with North Denver Cares. So his organization got money, as well as 4 other food banks in this area. Almost every day, somebody comes either to the church or the community center looking for food, and one of those food banks is where we send them to. And so yearly, we try to actually give them a gift to help them. Since we don't have one, we want to help them be able to sustain what they're doing. We gave to an organization that works with at-risk kids. We gave to an organization that works with widows. And so that's where we looked at in terms of where are the needs, what are needs that we often see here in the church, and then how can we help organizations that are doing that with our benevolence dollars. So that's where those went.
Any other questions?
Brian Decker has a question. Brian Decker would like you to continue to give a surplus to the benevolence.
Yes. He's the number one food bank we send all of the people that we encounter in need to. He's a beautiful ministry.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to thank the church and the folks that gave us the funding that we received from the benevolence fund. Me and my team have been praying for a long time because we have refrigeration equipment that's actually absolutely necessary for a food bank to keep your food fresh and frozen and whatever. My equipment is probably somewhere around 15 to 20 years old, and so I have an HVAC guy that keeps it running for me. And we had been praying for about 2 months for God to supply the need, because we were in dire need of some fixing up of our refrigeration equipment. Well, that check came in the mail, and we were in the middle of prayer, and we just broke down. And thanked the Lord and was very happy about it, and it was an answer to prayer. And so you talk about God working, and it's really amazing how God blesses our ministry. People, first question on most grant applications is, are you faith-based? And of course we are. And so that pretty well eliminates you from getting government money. So we depend on God's people to supply the need for our food bank. My wife and I started it 21 years ago, and we are still continuing, and God is still blessing the ministry. So I just want to thank you folks for what happened, and it was really a blessing, and it was really an answer to prayer. And we, as I always say, we serve an awesome God. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Brian.
Brian. Yeah, Brian's one of my heroes. Brian retired from mechanical and working for the school districts, and him and his wife went into retirement at 65 years old and decided that God wasn't done with them yet, and then started one of the largest food banks on this side of town and serves 500 people every week through that food bank, and does it because the Lord asked him to in his retirement. And so we gladly support you, Brian.
Absolutely. Such a beautiful story. Thank you. All right. Any other thoughts? I'm always available. Oh, Jeremy's got one.
Jeremy's up here.
I am, though. If thoughts percolate, if there's things that you'd like to talk through or chew over more, I'm always available to have these conversations.
First off, I'm pretty disappointed in the backflip.
I am too. I was hoping for
There you go, Jeremy. You got it.
a full send is what I wanted. Okay.
Yeah. How much of the infrastructure of the lighting has to be replaced?
How much of the infrastructure? Most all of it. Everything that isn't a wire. And so part of, so in here, all the halogens will go away. All of the cafe lights will go away. These fixtures right here, they're very expensive. And they blow quite regularly. And every time they blow, is it $400, Chelsea, to replace? Something in that neighborhood. We replace these things all the time.
It's expensive.
And so, anyhow, all of this infrastructure is built on an old incandescent system. And so it's not just replacing a bulb for LED lights like you would in your house. It's actually the whole system that has to be replaced. And so every single one of these lights has to. So if it's not a wire, it basically has to get replaced in here. Part of that is we looked into a hybrid system that would be considerably cheaper. The issue is that right now, moving through the Colorado floor of our Congress is a movement to basically getting rid of halogens and incandescents. And so not being able to use those in the state of Colorado. The problem is 100% of this room is incandescent. And so the idea is probably somewhere, people who pay attention to this, somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 5 years, incandescent lights will be illegal in Colorado. And at that point, even if we went with a hybrid system today, we would have to do more work to change. Like, so for example, the hybrid system would allow us to keep the halogens up here. But in 4 or 5 years, the reality is that these will probably not be able to be used. We won't be able to buy the bulbs anymore. And so at that point, we would actually have to pay more money to build the system even further. And so under the trustees' discernment, it was decided that it would be better just to do the complete overhaul that will give us a lighting system that will probably last somewhere in the next 20 to 25 years. The next time we will have to replace this, the next senior pastor will have to worry about it. So that's what we're hoping for. That's what I'm hoping for personally. So does that answer your question, Jeremy? Yeah, it is a massive, massive overhaul. It is no small job.
The only thing I would add to this is that the trustees did a really, really good job of discerning the fullness of scope of what's needed around here. So they looked at all of the upcoming projects, all of the different weird nuances of this building and the lifespans of this building and the other building, and then they looked at the funds that we had and they looked at the priority statement. So this was just really richly prayed for and discerned because it's a big expense. And so I feel really proud of that board and the way that they investigated this and the way that they just prayerfully discerned to make this decision, because it wasn't done lightly, I think is what I wanted to convey.
One other just consideration that we had in this, when we first, if you've noticed that sometimes this room like flickers, if you're in here, there's a flickering that happens, or there's a bulb that blows or something like that. And so we first thought it was a power issue. And so we had our power tested, and what we realized in that is actually Life Church that is just built over here, that has an auditorium the size of our auditorium, they use half as much electricity as we do on a given Sunday. We are pulling a ton of electricity into this room because everything, again, is incandescent as opposed to LED. And so part of this change will hopefully lower our electric bills. Some, we will not be drawing 400 watts of energy into this room. It'll be about half of that, which is a good thing. It's not going to be $300,000, right? Like, that energy savings will not offset this cost to a degree that will be important for us to see. But maybe we won't have a rolling blackout when it's 105 degrees outside and we're all running our air conditioning. So anyways, that's a small benefit of what we're doing. But yeah, the whole lighting structure it's a big deal. Any other questions or thoughts? Oh, Jeremy, number 2.
Flip. Where are we at with the housing project?
The housing project is on hold, so right now where we're at is Archway is supposed to contact me in August to take next steps. And those next steps could be we're not going to do anything, or it could be we'd like to kind of renegotiate some of the terms of the contract because they're going to be in violations of the contract very soon. The reality is that there are, to my knowledge, there's only one affordable housing space that's going up. And if you're aware, like basically like 144th in York, the Archdiocese of Denver is building a brand new cathedral out there. So there's a brand new Catholic church that's going out, like 144th or so, and York. And part of that Archdiocese is they're going to have a huge housing area that's a part of that development, that's affordable housing. My guess is it's where nuns are going to live. Honestly, that's not a joke. I think it's going to be nun housing. But that's the only affordable thing that's in development right now in Thornton. All affordable housing is pulled out of Thornton because of the decisions of the city. So, to be determined of what that looks like, which, you know, in part, that's a $2 million contract, which was going to, in some ways, help the funding of the remodel of this building. And so we'll have to just think through what that looks like if Archway's not going to move forward. But I don't know whether they'll move forward or not. That conversation will come in August. Any other questions? Right behind you, Chad has a question. Rick, right behind you. You have a job, Rick. That's right. You've done a lot of backflips.
Right. Just real quick, is there a process, and if so, what is it? If there's budget shortfall on one side and a surplus maybe in the general fund, or I guess the benevolent offering is high and we have a shortfall somewhere else, is there a process to share money, share budget line items?
Yeah, about a year, very fortuitously, God was before us in this. So maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, the trustees and I built a cash reserves plan for that very thing. We wanted to evaluate if funding would decrease, if the economy keeps getting worse, what are we going to do? And so we have certain buckets of money that we retain for certain things. Like we have a certain bucket for cash reserves. We have a certain bucket for emergency expenses. And then along with these buckets of money, we have trigger points. So if we go below a certain dollar value or a certain pacing percentage, then it triggers us to do something with those funds. This year, we were very lucky because we didn't spend as much as we received. So we actually ended up with a surplus. That surplus goes back into that cash reserves plan. If it was different, if we had spent our full budget and we were short $161,000, that would have triggered us to take money from one of the buckets. And then it also triggers spending things too. So for example, the first level of trigger is we tell our staff we have to slow down on spending. We hire no new employees, those sorts of things. And then those triggers, there's 5 triggers. If we get to the 5th trigger, you're firing the 2 of us, I think. Maybe the 3rd trigger, I'm not sure. But yeah, so we have a very robust plan in effect to help us avoid that kind of problem. That's a great question.
One of the other questions maybe in that, Chad, is when it comes to general giving, we put that towards budget, and in surplus years, it goes to what Angie's talking about. There's savings and all of that fills those buckets. When somebody designates giving, if you write something on a check, if you're giving money for the Christmas Eve offering, we have to use that towards Christmas Eve. The trustees can, in like moments of emergency, like if we were in dire straits, turn benevolence money into, but there's a lot of tax issues with that. So by and large, what we work on is if you give a designated money, our obligation is to spend it in the way that you designated it. And so again, when it comes to the benevolence, that's for the help of people. And so that money wasn't going to be sent to, a random organization. We were very specific in sending it to organizations that help people in this area, because that's what benevolence, the heart of benevolence. If somebody gives to the Pursuit, for example, money to the Pursuit, then we have to use that in terms of a men's ministry for that. And so when it comes to designated giving, it's kind of a catch-22. We want to be very open and allow people to be generous where they want to be generous in their giving. And at times that's causal, and we try to create some spaces that people can be causal in their giving. The other issue of that is when we have a surplus in benevolence, right, and a decrease in our general budget. Nobody likes to, in Chip's famous words, nobody likes to give for toilet paper. But the reality is that's where some of the general budget goes to. And so we try to just navigate that the best that we can. And our commitment is if you designate money, we'll spend it in the way that you designate it. When Angie and I hear of a large gift coming in that's designated, typically we'll actually have a conversation with somebody and of whether that really needs to be a designated gift or if it can go into the general fund. So, for example, somebody wanted to give, this is to come in months, you'll hear more about this, but when it comes to the rising generation, there's somebody that's a part of Crossroads Church who is very on board with the rising generation, and they wanted to give $8,000 a year to basically a young adult ministry. And we had the conversation, instead of designating that, what we did is ask them to put it to the general fund, and then we would put it into a specific account that we could use so that it would just be, so it doesn't end up in a pot that we can't use accordingly because there's too narrow of lines drawn on it.
And just two qualifiers, we only have 2 public designated funds available, and that's missions and benevolence. So those are the only things, if you were just to look at our scroll down, those are the only 2 open designated funds we have. And then the other thing is, it's I think in stage 4 or 5 where we reallocate those. So we have to get really bad to even think about doing that. So just 2 additions. Thanks for that really good question. All right. Oh, one more.
Yes, you may have already talked about this, but how does the kitchen fit into this upgrade? I know it's part of it's natural gas, but...
Yeah, the kitchen right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the kitchen here actually is going to be redone as a storage room. And so this kitchen on average is used only about 6 times a year. Because of state regulations, it is becoming more and more expensive to be able to use this kitchen, that every staff person we have to pay for to make sure that we are in compliance with the kitchen through the state. And so over the last several years, this kitchen has diminished in its use quite a lot. Now, it's used for staging and stuff like that. But in terms of our growth, as we continue to grow, we continue to look for places to put people. And so our largest storage room, which is what is now our next room, we had to move all of the stuff out. It's actually sitting in trailers and all of that. There's some really good stuff if you just want to hook up a truck and take it. But
Don't do that.
Dylan would be very sad, and we would be very sad. So anyways, all that to say, this kitchen, if you imagine it over here, those doors, that window, and the silver thing over here, it all goes away. And where that silver piece is actually gets cut into, and that becomes a larger door that we can move, and tables and all of these chairs can go in there. So that we're able to clean this room, that we're able to set up this room in different ways. Right now, we have to store everything in this hallway when we have any different kind of big events in here, so on and so forth. So that kitchen in the remodel goes away. And then part of the equipment is going to go to Northglenn for the kitchen there that is used multiple times every week in terms of what that looks like.
So basically, the kitchen's going away and it's becoming storage.
Yes, this kitchen goes away, storage happens. Most of the cooking actually happens up in room 201 in Volunteer Central, so Donna is in charge of that. And so 201 is going to be retrofitted. You can think of it more like a scaled down residential kitchen that's going to be up there.
And the
so-
remodel's covered by the overhaul of all this. It's into the same fund?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
When does it start? September? When does the remodel start?
That will be after we get bids. So the next thing that we'll need to do is get bids from contractors. And so the trustees ask us to get 3 bids. And so we will have meetings with 3 different contractors. We'll see what those bids are, how much money it's going to take to remodel this. And then from there, we'll make a decision of whether we want to bring it to the church or not in order to fundraise the money. Because at that point, the fundraising portion of this will be, or what we'll need to remodel this building is more than what we have in savings. And so there's probably a fundraising piece of that. And so we'll have to discuss that with the trustees and the church council. And if they decide to move forward, then we'll bring it to a business meeting here where we will request to move forward, because it will require, at least initially, for us to take a loan. And then what does that look like as we pay it off, or pay it in full at the beginning, whatever that looks like. But initially, there will be some money that we'll have to take a loan for, which neither church council nor trustees can make that decision. That's a congregational decision to take on debt. And so that's where we're at. Right now, we're doing well. As Angie has said a couple of times, our teams are incredibly innovative and continue to find space and squeeze space out of this building in really good ways. And at the same time, we continue to feel the crunch in some pretty severe ways on Sunday morning. Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts? McKenna, is there anything online that we need to pay attention to? Okay.
She covered it. Thanks, guys.
All right, so last thing that I have for us before we leave is just a couple of staffing announcements that I want to get to. And so first, many of you, all of you know Chip, who is sitting in the back there. Chip, 2 fun facts about Chip. Chip has been a part of the staff for nearly 30 years here at Crossroads. His family has been is on the founding documents of Crossroads. And so the Cases were one of the 3 original families that started Crossroads when Chip was 3 years old. And so in March of this year, Chip and I sat down, and Chip let me know that he is going to retire. And so on January 30th of 2027, Chip is calling it good in terms of his work at Crossroads Church, ending his 30 years here on staff. And then he asked me, can he come back and mow the lawn? Which I said, of course not. No, just kidding, yeah. And so anyways, so Chip, and so on the 65th anniversary celebration that we're going to have, we'll announce Chip's retirement and what that looks like, and just part of that day we'll be celebrating him. Yeah, so give it up for Chip. Yeah, Chip has done everything. He started in janitorial services. He has been our business administrator. And over the last several years, 5 years or so, he has run our community center. And so he has been an amazing asset, a better person on this staff. And we're thankful for all of his time. And we're going to miss him. We're going to miss him in January. So what's that? Who takes his place? Why are you jumping ahead, Lynn? Just stop stealing my thunder. That's right. So who we have hired in that, we just had a conversation before that because he still hasn't signed quite yet, but I said, I'm going to take it on good word. So we have been kind of in a search for a good season of who this next person could be. And we actually had someone here at Crossroads Church who had been in ministry for a long season, has actually been a former senior pastor, and now attends. And 2 years ago, I hired his wife, and now I'm going to hire him, and his name is Theo Hudala. And so, yeah, so we're super excited that Theo Hudala, is Theo in the house today? Or did he take Micah home? And so Theo will be joining our staff in October. Actually, September, last week of September is when he'll be joining the team here. And so he's going to oversee the community center. He's also going to overtake missions. And so he's going to take that from me. And so he's going to lead our missions program as well as our community center. And he will be a part of the preaching team as well here at Crossroads. And so I'm super excited to have him on. He comes with, like I said, a ton of experience. And we're excited to see him as he really kind of moves into this space that God's been calling him to for a while in terms of really ministering to those who are underserved and underprivileged. And so this just seemed like a match made in heaven. I can tell you the whole God story of how this ended up, of where this ended up, but it was super cool. And so we're excited to have Theo join us. Angie, do you want to add anything to that?
We're just really excited. I mean, you're right, Lynn. Chip is an incredible human, more than like part of our working force. He's just an incredible human that makes us laugh and just has joy. So we will miss him for sure. And also, God is doing a good work in their home and in their retirement life, and God is doing a good work in the community center. And Theo is really, honestly, I wish we had time to share the God story because he's a perfect fit for this. So I'm excited to see what God's going to do.
Yep. So, like I said, he'll come on end of September. He's going to join the core team as part of his role. And then really the first couple of months will be him really connecting with all of our partners. We have 11 missionaries. We have about 30 partners. We have city connections that all are very important to the community center. And so for the first couple of months, he'll be meeting with a lot of people, just making those connections. Then we'll have our Joyful Journey Santa Drive, which we do at the community center every year that he'll be a part of. And then in January, he and Chip will kind of shift, where Chip will take a back seat that last month. Theo will start leading the community center in January. And then at the end of January, Chip will retire, start mowing the lawn. And then Theo will lead the community center from there. So that's just the quick overview of how it's going to work. It was really important for Angie and I to make sure that we had somebody by October because we wanted them to be able to cross over. We didn't want Chip. Chip has 65 years of city influence and knowledge and relationships. That's impossible to replace. That kind of relational coin you just can't replace. And so we wanted to make sure that the guy or gal who was coming in had enough runway to basically for Chip to introduce that person to the people that they needed to know in order to be successful in the job that we're asking them to do. And so God answered all those prayers and made that happen. So that's what's happening with Chip and Theo. Who you've seen a couple times host, and so you'll see him a little bit more. The third staffing piece that I need to let you know about is in light of upcoming vision and what we want to do next year, one of the things that we realize is that when it comes to young adults, that's been a ministry that's been a little bit missing at Crossroads for a good season. And as we've talked as a staff, one of the things that has just resonated so deeply with us is that when it comes to the 18 to 26-year-old person, that age group is now the most hopeless age group in the United States. For the first time in recorded history, they are less hopeful and less happy than middle-aged adults. So you have college students who are graduating college who don't see a hopeful future. That's what that statistic is saying. And we have sat around and we've said the church has the hope that they're looking for. We need to engage in that, and we have to figure out what that looks like. And so, in part of this, as we've moved forward, we've asked John Gross, Pastor John, to move from Director of Family Ministry to starting our young adult ministry and focusing in that area and beginning to run that. You can give that up for John. And so John's going to start leading the charge on that, really beginning in August. And so his last kind of day as family director will be at the baptism event. And then he's going to shift roles into young adult ministry here at Crossroads and begin building that ministry for us so that in January we would like to launch something of significance on that day. And so that's what that's going to look like. In the meantime, family director is an important role here at Crossroads Church. And so our team right now is a really great team. Denise and Shelley have our children's on lockdown. McKenna and Damon have youth ministry moving in a great great way, great trajectory into the future. And so our family ministry is really stout right now, strong in terms of our staff leadership. And so we're creating a way where they'll have some reporting to Angie as they run their ministries in that until we can find a replacement in family ministry in that. And so that's what's happening in family ministry with John. You want to add anything to that, Angie? All right. Any questions on that before we move on? Any of the three, Chip, Theo, John, family? All right. So the last staffing change that I have for you, not really a change, just a change in position and title, is, as you know, that for most of 2024 and 2025, we as a church really kind of looked at what does it mean to be a pastor at Crossroads Church, and specifically also what does it mean for women to be in ministry at Crossroads Church. If you were here in January, we talked about what that looked like. I walked us through all of that. Out of that, Angie, for the last several years, has really started to feel a call towards pastoral ministry. The way that we look at ministry, and particularly pastoral ministry, is that we don't just select people to be pastors. We actually identify what God's doing in their life. We see God at work in their lives. And then out of that, we recognize what God has called them to. And so Angie went through probably the most arduous process that we've ever had, because it's brand new, of what it looks like to be a pastor at Crossroads. And last month at our church council, unanimously, she was voted as a pastor of Crossroads Church. Now, this is significant, not because she's the first pastor that's ever been licensed at Crossroads Church. Plenty of women have been pastors in terms of chaplaincy, but she is the very first pastor to serve at Crossroads Church. And so from this point forward, Angie is now the executive pastor at Crossroads with all the responsibilities that come with that. And so there is no one at Crossroads who works harder than Angie. And for many of you who have been touched by Angie and her ministry, we have just seen a growing sense of people coming to Angie for pastoral care, for shepherding, and it just made sense to us that even though she is amazing at the numbers, you saw the numbers in the spreadsheets and all of that, that if you know her, her true gifting is in shepherding. And so Angie will begin, well, you'll just see it. It's not a begin. You already do it. And so her title will change on Sunday mornings, and she'll start operating in some of that role. The very question that follows, will Angie be on the preaching team? And the answer is not right now. Angie has a lot of stuff happening. She has a variety of teaching roles in different ways that she uses her gift of teaching. And on Sunday morning, that won't be a case right now. I'm not promising it won't be in the future or is not going to be in the future. But just right now with the role that Angie plays, preaching is a burden of add-on, not a blessing that she would get to do. And so that's where we stand on that. And so anyways, when it comes to that, any questions or thoughts that you'd like to share before I close it up? Donna Moss? Backflip over Chad? Great job, Rick.
And Angie is fabulous, but I do have to ask, are you going to continue on with the duties that you currently have? Will it be an all-inclusive and then some role?
Yeah, so the answer to that is yes. So in most churches, the role that Angie fulfills is the role of executive pastor. That's the title. CEO is something very unique to Crossroads Church. Executive pastor is where this lives everywhere else. And what we've seen over the years is that as Angie has taken more presence on the stage from a hosting perspective, as she leads teams, really in the hierarchy of our staff, Angie reports to me, everybody else reports to Angie. The core team all reports to Angie, and then so on and so forth down the line, right? And so as Angie's become more public, what we've seen is that more and more people, both men and women, have sought Angie out for pastoral. And so pastoral spaces, pastoral care. Angie helps with benevolence. She meets with people in counseling situations. And so this was really a recognizing of what God was already doing in her life here at Crossroads Church. And so it is it's not really a plus. It's what she's already doing, and we're just now attaching the correct title to it, if that makes sense.
And that's exactly what I would do, is give her a big hand.
Yes.
And congratulations, Angie, you deserve it.
Thank you, Donna. Got some cheerleaders back there. Yeah, one of the great things about this that Angie and I are really pumped about is that we no longer have to explain what CEO of a church is. And so that question comes up more often than you would imagine. Anyways, this makes more sense, and we're excited that she's now part of the pastoral team. So now you have 4 pastors at Crossroads. Matt, Chris, John, and Angie, all right? So those are your 4 pastors here at Crossroads. You can still call Pastor Kim pastor. I won't punch you for it, but he's retired. So, but he's still a beloved pastor here at Crossroads. So, any other questions or thoughts, comments that you want to make? All right. Well, we're going to call it good then. So, how about one more. Right, Lynn, right under the gun. Hey, Rick. Rick, I need you to do backflips. Right, Lynn, right there. That was so close, Lynn. I was about to pray to the Father, and you know once you pray, it's over. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm so thankful for a church that cares about the Lord the way they do.
Yeah, thank you.
It puts him first in everything they do.
Yeah. I was just talking to Jeff Dieselberg, and he said what he loves about this church is that we keep the main thing, and that's Jesus. And his family was so over the top about what they experienced in worship today and the friendliness of people here at Crossroads. And he said, you can't walk this place without knowing that Jesus is at the center. And that was the greatest compliment anybody can give to me. So I'm with you. All right, so we're going to hang around afterwards. If you have money questions or really any questions, Jeffrey's down here. Angie's here. If you have other questions that you want to ask me, you can ask me. Chris is in the back. John's also here too if you want to talk to him about that. And so we'll stick around for a couple of minutes, but we'll call it finished. So let me pray us and be done. Father, so grateful for the day that you've given to us and the opportunity that we have to talk about the business of your church. God, there's a lot of things that you're doing here at Crossroads, a lot of things that are going on with our building, Lord, and our finances, with our staff. And Lord, most importantly, with the people that you're bringing here who are far away from you, who are coming and they are hearing life. And so, Lord, I pray that we would carry that hope well, that as we continue to step into the future of what you have for us, Lord, that our eyes would always be attuned to you. And Lord, that the greatest thing that anybody can say about this church is that our eyes are on you. And so we thank you for it. We thank you for the Dieselbergs, them being here today with us, and the blessing that we got just to simply be in their presence. God, we give our time to you, this afternoon to you, and so we give it to you knowing that you hear us and that you love us. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen. All right, thanks for being here today.